Well, I became an art teacher by accident. I wanted to be a professional artist, but at the time I graduated, America was just building up the Vietnam War, and they were drafting people of my age, so I would have been drafted. And I was opposed to the war politically and morally, and I didn't want to go to Vietnam. I didn't want to fight. And at the time, there were only 3 ways to get out of the military. You could claim you were gay, or you could claim you were insane, or you could claim you were a pacifist, and then you would do some alternate work, or they weren't drafting teachers. So I quickly found a teaching job through help of one of my teachers, and so she helped me find a job, and it was in an all-black school at a time in the United States when there was a lot of social unrest between blacks and whites. So I went to an all-black school as a white teacher, and that's how I began. And I found out I really liked to teach, and I've been teaching ever since, but it was an accident. It was all because of Vietnam. I was trained as an artist, not as an art teacher. So when I began to teach, I didn't know any teaching methodology. I made everything up as I went. It was exhausting. I had to invent curriculum. I never studied art education. I just knew how to make art, and I taught the kids how to make art. Well, when I was teaching in that school, what I was really trying to do was to build the kids' confidence, because they didn't have much confidence in themselves. So I did a lot of what I would call almost art therapy, of trying to make them feel better about themselves. So I tried a lot to encourage them a lot, and to do artworks that they could be successful at, so that they could feel better about themselves. I wanted to help people, so I felt good about being able to be in a service profession. So that was important. I felt like I was contributing to society. I wouldn't want to just make money. I wouldn't want to sell shoes just to make money. I want to contribute to society, and I always wanted to. So teaching was a good way to do it. Especially now, I'm teaching at the university level, and now I'm teaching young people how to be teachers. And I'm most interested in what art means, how we interpret art, why it's important to you, why it's important to me. So that's what motivates me. And I have to motivate the students, I have to choose art that's interesting to them. Art that is provocative, that raises questions. So a lot of it depends on what kind of art I choose, and then what kind of questions I ask. I think art is about meaning. Art is about being human. Art is about artists. I think artists have a special way to know the world, a special way to communicate about the world, a special way to give us feelings, a special way to give us knowledge. So I think that's very important. And if we didn't have artists, we would miss a lot of knowledge. So that's crucial to me. If I don't relate to my students well, I don't think I taught well. And if I don't have a good conversation with the students, I feel bad after class. And if I have a very good conversation with students, I feel very excited. So, and I can tell when it's going well and when it's not going well. And when it goes well, it's very enjoyable. And when it doesn't go well, I feel bad. I think I can tell if it goes well by watching the students and seeing if they're engaged, if they're interested, or if they're falling asleep. If they're engaged, then I'm engaged. And I have to be interested in what I'm teaching about. It's important that I think it's important. And then I try to get them to see why it's important. And if we both see it that it's important, then we can both engage. And it's very exciting, and the time goes very fast. I made art in the beginning of my career, and I was tenured. I don't know if you have tenure here in Holland, but do you have tenure? Okay. Well, I earned tenure by making art and by making photographs, art photographs, and exhibiting them in galleries, and then doing some writing. And then I decided that I wanted to write more. I thought I could contribute more by writing than I could by making more pictures. So I started writing more. And I was getting reinforcement for the writing, and I enjoyed writing. I've enjoyed writing since high school, really. Or even as a young child, I used to write letters to my uncle in the war. He was in the Mediterranean, he was in the Navy, and he would write back. He was in communications, he would write back on this big typewriter, and I would get these big typed letters from him from the Mediterranean, and they were very exciting to me, and then I would write back to him. So I've always liked to write, and then I discovered I could write about art, and I enjoyed writing about art. So then I started writing, and then I made a book, or published a book, and then another book, and more articles, and pretty soon I didn't have time both to be a good artist and a good writer. So I decided to be a good writer, or try to be a good writer. And then about 12 years ago, I missed making art, so I began making art again. So now I'm making art, but I'm not. I thought I had more to say by writing. I didn't think the world needed another picture by me, but maybe I could make something that would, maybe I could write something that would help more than making another picture. All of my writing came from teaching, and all of my writing, or at least most of my writing, my books, I first try with my classroom with Xerox. I give them a Xerox copy, and I test it with them and see what works, what doesn't work, and then I revise. But all my books I've written for my students. And all the courses that I teach at the university, I've designed myself, because we have a very large department. So every course I've taught, I've got to design myself. It wasn't like assigned to me. So I had to create materials for the course. And so if it worked for my students, I thought it would work for other people's students. So that's how that happened. Writing is very satisfying to me, especially if I'm read. If someone tells me that they read an article that they liked or that helped them, or if I go to a conference and someone stops me in the hall and they tell me that they liked the book or that they used the book, that means a lot. That motivates me a lot. Because writers don't get too much feedback. I think artists don't get too much feedback. You put up a show, you have an opening, you drink wine and eat cheese, and you don't really hear much about your work. And the same is true for authors. We don't even have wine and cheese. We just put the books out there. And if I get feedback that's positive, then that motivates me to make more. And I can tell from my students that the material makes sense to them and they enjoy reading it. And I hear from other professors that they like to read my books, that students like to, and that's very encouraging. If they didn't want to, I'd stop writing.